All right. Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, your home for the apocalypse for episode 73, Off Topic, number 1. I am the apocalypse nerd, and he is Adam Bomb Glancy. So, what we're going to be doing tonight, folks, is, as you can see, it's called Off Topic. It's not that we're not talking about the apocalypse. It's just that we talked about this idea about, you know how we like to talk about things and rant before the main subject matter of a show? Well, you know, that's what this show is going to be. Like we're trying to get it in now so we don't have to go talk for 45 minutes and then talk about the movie. So
you really think this is going to work? That we're going to get all of our ranting out now and
it's an experiment. It's like it might be a way to get some of it off, and I called it number 1 because we'll probably do subsequent ones, and I'll call them 2 and 3 because when it goes into iTunes and stuff, it's got to be able to be different and identifiable. So it's like number 1, number 2. So this is just going to be a show about just talking about stuff instead of.
We'll get to the apocalypse. Don't worry. There's apocalyptic things that will be talked about.
Oh yeah. It's just going to be the apocalyptic stuff that we normally talk about before the show. So, so do we do an in the news about the in the news that we're doing?
I don't know. Let's. I say we just leap into the
stuff.
First things we've got to share with everybody.
All right. First thing I'm going to tell people is I posted a reminder, and I also extended the contest. We only have. You don't have that many entries for the coloring contest. That's why is it 4? Yeah, so that's why I extended it for a week to get some more in, and I did get some more. Because we want, if it was 1 entry, it's like that's not a contest. So I at least wanted to get some more people to do it. And you have until Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Friday is the 12th. So if you haven't done it yet, do it. I got a couple of posts on the blog about it. The blog is podcast@groundzero.com. So go to the blog, you will see all the information about it. So we've got this, like I said, a few entries. Each one has a different style, which is cool, which is what we were looking for. Because again, we had
no two the same. It's really nice that so far everyone's been really original.
Yeah, so that's what we wanted. We didn't want to say, oh, you have to do it like this or that. And again, there's going to be no parameter on, oh, well, they did it like this. We're not going to. It's whatever me and Scott agree on that we like the best. So it doesn't matter what style it is. It's just, what we're going to like. So we got a few entries. And as we know, it is going to be for the copy of, the Survivalist, Jerry Ahern. So, and I have what was this? Oh, it doesn't flip me. Okay. When I was at the used bookstore a couple weeks ago, I got some I'm gonna come up with some more stuff for some other contests, and I got some more stuff lined up for more books. Oh yeah.
I see the Guardians in there. What else you got?
Yep, I got a copy of the Guardians number 1. I also have a copy of Andre Norton's Starman's Son, which the first contest was for No Night Without Stars. Andre Norton's post-apocalyptic stuff is really good, so I've got a copy of Starman's Son. I also got a copy of, actually, it's a better copy than the one I have, and the one I got 30 years ago. I got you a copy of this book. I know you weren't that big of a fan of it, but I saw it there, so I had to pick it up. The Steel, the Mist, and the Blazing Sun by Christopher Anvil.
It's a very strange book, sir. It's a very strange book.
It is, but you know what? I'll bet you a lot of our fans never even heard of this.
No.
So that's why I was like, you know what, this will be cool to put in there, and then a copy of, because I have an extra one now, and I'll explain that, of The Outrider by Richard Harding. It was one of these 80s men's adventure post-apocalyptic series, like The Outrider and The Traveler and End World and all that stuff.
Survivalist. Yeah, exactly.
Also, I got a bunch of stuff lined up for future contests. Just I got to come up with something, so which we will.
You mean come up with a contest?
Yeah, a contest. We'll have to do something. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of the coloring contest. I thought it was kind of cool. I thought we'd get more of a response, but
we're gonna have to maybe whoever can bring us the most gasoline. Perhaps that is the contest we're looking for. I don't know.
Something. Because I had somebody post about. I keep getting a lot of posts by one of our newer fans, Dr. Scott A. Joseph. Been posting on the blog, and I haven't gotten back to you yet on there. So sorry, Scott. But like if you've heard these shows, I get around to stuff eventually. I'm just a little slow on stuff. But he posted that he didn't enter the contest because he doesn't color, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. There'll be other contests, so don't worry.
It's a safe space. We don't judge you whether you color or not. We really don't.
No, not at all. And also I wanted to answer Dr. Joseph's question because again I wasn't responding to him. He started listening to shows recently, so he was going back to some of the older stuff, and probably 4 or 5 years ago when I was putting out a call and ranting about On the Eighth Day about how I can't get a hold of it, and he's like, "Did you find it? Just Google it. It's there now." And yes, that is true because of me. Because what happened was because of me asking about it and doing some research, I found that there were several libraries, college libraries throughout the country, only like 3 or 4 had copies of this in their libraries. None of them were close to me at all. But there was one in Hawaii, and one of the followers of our show lived in Hawaii, and he went to the college library and checked it out and ripped a copy. And he posted it on his YouTube channel because he does postapocalyptic.com. So he just kind of gathers post-apocalyptic. He's kind of like an apocalyptic news feed type of place, posts to blogs and stuff. So he posted it on his YouTube channel. So it's been out there for 4 or 5 years now. So it's easy to find now. But at the time when I was looking for it, it didn't exist digitally until I put the call out. So you could thank me for it. So,
well, clearly you are the impetus for bringing this into the digital world. Yes. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Let me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Get some build up some more calluses on your back there from patting yourself. That's good.
Hey, I only speak the truth, sir.
All right. So what's next on the agenda?
Oh, I got lots of stuff to show some people and talk about, but what do you got? You got some stuff to talk about?
Well, I don't have too terribly much. The one thing that I've been running up against lately in some of my research online has been the real world news stories that I keep coming across about the new sort of apocalypse preparedness that's happening at a much more advanced economic level than the sort of a preparedness that we saw during our lifetimes, during the Cold War. There are some ridiculously high-end bunkers out there that have been built by private citizens, There's that one in Vegas that has the crazy interior and the crazy underground exterior that's been painted on all the walls, and there's things like that. But mostly it hasn't been that huge, and what I've been running across recently is that there is a real push amongst sort of the tech industry money out there in California. And one of the big guys in that is Peter Thiel, who I guess was one of the early people who were investors in Facebook. I think he may have had something else to do with, like Elon Musk, he may have had something to do with PayPal. But it started off with seasteading. This idea that you're going to build a raft of rich people who are going to float out beyond the 50-mile limit, and governments can't touch you. And when everything falls apart on the mainland, they'll just drift around and have their society out in the ocean until somebody realized that these islands are an invitation to be wiped out by a typhoon or be invaded by Filipino pirates and burned to the ground. And so the new plan is New Zealand. And both seasteading and New Zealand were all about creating lifeboats, essentially, for the very wealthy. Someplace they can go and sit out what they anticipate to be an economic and ecological apocalypse. That the threat they think the threat of global warming is real. That it's produced by the economy we currently have, the kind of market-driven economy and capitalism we currently have, and that the very thing that made them rich is eventually going to cause some sort of massive die-off. Rather than stop doing that, the plan is to go move someplace where the flood waters won't cover them. And apparently New Zealand is the place that everyone is laying their bets.
So instead of making plans to stop what they're doing, to stop the occurrence, it's just like, well, we're not going to
stop making money. I mean, that's crazy talk. That sounds like communism.
Oh,
right?
That's totally communism.
That. So we're just going to keep the engine of the economy running.
Free market. Yeah, I don't know.
We're going to keep the engine of the economy just open, full blast until it sinks, and we'll just get out of the way on our lifeboat while everyone else goes down with the ship. And seasteading and fantasies about building colonies on Mars were certainly part of that for guys like Musk and Thiel. But the most practical thing is to move to New Zealand. And Thiel actually went and bought his way into a New Zealand citizenship so he can buy land in New Zealand, because there were all these restrictions about what land, how to buy land in New Zealand unless you're a citizen. So he bought himself a dual citizenship. He's purchased some land out there, and the plan was to sort of build some ark out there. And I'd heard these stories going around about these sort of millionaires thinking about we're going to buy a silo. Some of these fashionable apocalypses where people will sell condo silos to rich people to set out the apocalypse. And it's just this really weird thing I've been hearing a lot about recently.
Well, maybe the guy in Odessa who has the Titan 1, maybe now he can find a buyer for it.
Yeah, but I've actually seen some stuff online where people showed off similar ones. Now, what was the silo you went and visited in Arizona? Was it a Titan?
Yeah, it was a Titan. It was a Titan 2 missile museum.
Okay, but it was a single launch and a single bunker, right?
Yeah. The Titan 1s had the multiple silos. The Titan 2s were typically just one.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
I've definitely seen Titan 1 silos that have been reconditioned in an attempt to be sold as sort of these apocalypse condos. The fascinating thing to me was that the people who are trying to build these, they understand that, they have money, but they may not necessarily have the skills to maintain the facility that they're buying, either mechanically or security-wise. And so some of these articles I was reading online, it has actually become a topic of discussion amongst the people who are investing in these sort of, getaway places. They're actually discussing, well, how do I keep my maintenance and security staff loyal after the bomb drops? I mean, what do they need me for after, not the bomb, but the ecological bomb, the economic bomb? They're not afraid of the Russians nuking us. They're afraid of the hoi polloi citizens coming and taking their shit because they're all out of money and they're all out of food, and, they'd like some clean drinking water. They've actually gotten to the point where they're like, okay, how do I keep my security and my maintenance force loyal to me? They've actually considered that. And I always thought, what you're going to see is those guys getting pitched over the wall of the redoubt, and the maintenance and security guys and their families just living in the rich guy's bunker, because what do they need him for? So unbelievably, at these sort of like, sit downs where guys are pitching ideas to each other, they're actually pitching things like, biometric locks on the food supply, so only the owner can open the food. Or I'm like, great, they keep you chained to a wall and they push your hand against the biometric lock. Genius. You're not going to be able to force them to do your will that way. And it's like, what about shock collars? They're actually considering, perhaps if I attached shock collars to my security troops' necks. Oh yeah, that's totally going to go your way, dude. I mean, there's no way they're going to cut your throat in the middle of the night if you've got shock collars on them. But it's
even the biometrics is like they can remove your hand and then get the stuff unlocked and then get into the system and change it. So it's
like all I can think is like, dudes, I know you think there's going to be a new Middle Ages and you're going to be the new warlord, but the same thing you seem to be forgetting about the Middle Ages is it wasn't just run by rich people. It was run by rich people who killed for a living. Every king, every baron, every duke, every count at some level had to be a killer, had to be a war leader that was good enough at his job that other killers would go, yeah, I'd totally follow this guy. He brings victory. He's the guy who makes sure that we come with more of our guys and more of other people's stuff. And that's just not who's investing in these places. I mean, it's not
because they're greedy and self-centered. They're only thinking about themselves. So it's like, well, unless I'm getting a paycheck, why am I being loyal to you? I'm gonna throw you out of the bunker and take your stuff. But then the long-term problem is like, well, why is your family more important? Then it's just that's going to erupt into civil war, and then next thing you know, the silo is going to be a smoking husk.
Yeah, I think we've seen this story before, where everyone starts fighting over who's in charge of the silo, as it were.
No, never.
But it's really strange to see this stuff actually turning up in the news, and I'm hoping, for the most part, that this is just a way for rich people to waste their money. To a certain extent. And
that's the problem too. If they have that much money to spend that to them is it shows a separate, they're not going to miss a meal and they're not going to miss a third yacht to invest in something like this. The money level that's involved is sort of ridiculous. Yeah, which again shows the separation. If we want to get into an economic class war in this discussion, that's what's really showing the gap. Yeah, right there between us, me and you, and these people. Yeah. But anyways, it's worth a look online if you Google some of these articles about sort of the tech bro apocalypse planning. It's fascinating, and it's interesting because they seem to have some fears about things breaking down, but they're not afraid of the Russians are coming. They're not afraid of that stuff. They're just kind of afraid of their fellow Americans. Yeah, they're afraid of people like you and me wanting to string them up and take their stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, that's the one little bit of apocalypse news that has been buzzing around in my head. It's not enough to make a whole show out of, but I did. It's all we're doing random topics or off topic. That's why we're doing this, just to talk about all these little things here and there. Now, did we announce on the show that the Gamma World First Edition was available through drive-thru, or did we just put it up on the site? Oh, I just put it up on the site because I just became aware of it yesterday. Then on to you, Mr. Wallace. Tell us about Gamma World. Oh, well, it seems like that WotC, a subsidiary of Hasbro, they've been kind of releasing a lot of their early gaming materials on drive-thru RPG the last couple years, right? Definitely the last few years. It was mainly just Dungeons and Dragons at first. They've been releasing it as PDF, and some of it's been print on demand. But they've been getting into some of their other more obscure or less known or not as popular licenses. Like I think this year they did Star Frontiers. They've done Boot Hill. They've had a couple of Gamma World things out there. Like they recently did a couple of, I don't know, about a month and a half ago. They did 4th edition, which was, the core book. And I saw somebody posted some pictures of the print on demand compared to the original. And the print on demand is a lot thicker because they're printing it on thicker paper, but it's all there. If you want the material, and you could buy it just as the print on demand, or you could buy the just the PDF if you want. So they've done Gamma World. They did 1st edition. They've done the. I'm surprised they've done any Gamma World. Like they did the recent version, 7th edition, the 4th edition D&D one. Yeah, they did those books and the cards, which was through drive-through cards. I think you could get those printed out. But I was surprised that they did the Gamma World. So it seems like they're on a trend of just releasing all their old catalog because they know it's just sitting there not making any money. And now they realize, oh, hey, maybe we just release this with no cost to us except for time investment. Let's just get this stuff out there, which is kind of smart on their point. But yeah, 1st edition Gamma World is now out there. I did get the PDF because people said it was a nice scan, like a good quality scan. Because I have, unofficial scans already, and normally the quality is pretty poor. So
once it's actually available from the seller, that's when I stop pirating. Once I can actually get it from the actual source and it's a good quality scan, that's the time to go ahead and buy it. Yeah,
I won't find it I won't pirate it if you make it available to me. I'll pay you the money for it as long as it's a good quality. The only thing the only problem it had was the layout structure was they did a bad job on it. And somebody said I should complain to them. Maybe they'll fix it. I could fix it myself, but I shouldn't have to do that. Basically, the PDF comes with the top and bottom of the box scanned, which is, and mind you, all this is in the same PDF. They didn't separate the PDFs.
Oh, wow. Uh-oh.
So, but that's the 1st and 2nd page. Okay. Then you have the book. Then it goes into the book cover. Book cover inside. It starts going down. But then once you hit page 6 of the PDF, boom, here's the map in the middle of the PDF. And then the 7th page is the back cover of the rule book. And then page 8 picks up with like the 4th page, and then it's correct from there. But like page 6 and 7, they dropped in the middle a map in the back, so it's not structured correctly.
Oh wow, that's weird.
Yeah, so if they would have started with the front cover, and then the back cover, then the map, then the box covers at the end, that's acceptable because it's like, okay, then it's separated. But it's like dropped in the middle in the beginning. It's kind of janky, But it is available, So I got that, and I got the POD coming because I wanted to see what that looks like, because I figured, what the hell, it's good to have a nice reading copy.
They can't possibly be printing the box.
No, it's just the book.
Okay.
Just the book.
Maybe with the color cover.
I'll find out.
Okay. Yeah, I was very glad to see that offered. I'll be picking up a copy myself just because I prefer to have most things on PDF these days. Simply because I can carry my whole gaming library with me, and I'm thrilled with my library, and that's only part of it. I mean, the Gamma World stuff's over on those shelves, but at the same time, it's really convenient to be able to just carry it digitally.
Oh yeah, modern technology, it's good, and hopefully they'll print some of the other stuff. I'm sure they'll do 2nd edition, and I would just wish they would do. Because there's not enough demand. They're not going to do real reprints of the stuff.
No, not a print run.
Yeah, I just wish that somebody would be able to come along with enough money to buy the license from them and
liberate it, shall we?
But it's not going to happen, especially now that they're selling it and making money. They're definitely not going to get rid of it.
Agreed.
I've had long conversations with this type of stuff with Stephen Lee. Friend Stephen Lee from who works with James Ward to do 77 Lost Worlds, the post-apocalyptic RPG, plus Dragon Scales, his fantasy game. And yeah, like they've sold off a lot of the. They have started to get. They sold out. Well, as you know, they sold off the original Top Secret to the original creator. That he got his license back. You know,
yep, Rasmussen.
And printed it, but it's not going to happen to the rest of that, because now that they have it on DriveThru RPG, they're making money on PDFs, which is easy for them because they just had to have somebody scan it. So they made an investment in time, but it wasn't like a huge investment, comparatively. So they'll never get rid of the license now, because even though it's completely dead, especially since 7th edition came out 8 years ago, they produced stuff. They had a plan to produce a couple things, so they had maybe 3 to 5 months worth of stuff, and then they just dropped it. That was it. Yep. It's like,
but nostalgia sells well to nerds. I mean, that's just when you see stuff that's old games, old books, old comic books, stuff that was in your collection, and you can now pick it up again after it's been lost for years. That sells really well. I was well, I'll leave that alone. I was going down a rabbit hole of toy nostalgia recently because I was in Victoria, BC, and there's this weird street, this weird little section of Victoria where there are it's like Nerd Central. There's a toy museum, which is actually the so-called official Canadian toy museum. There was a Games Workshop miniatures and paint store. There was a big boxed game store. There were like 2 comic stores, all within 1 block of this one intersection in Victoria. And getting into that game store, I ran across things that I'm like, oh my God, all the stuff that I owned as a kid. And it definitely calls to you. It calls to you.
Oh yeah. Well, the nostalgia train in recent years has been pretty hard for a lot of people, because look at all this stuff with, retro gaming, retro clones and reissuing stuff. And we'll look at Steve Jackson did a Kickstarter for the Fantasy Trip.
Yeah.
For a new edition, because he got the rights back. And that thing was tremendous on the amount of backers it had and the money and the stuff they're producing, because people want old school gaming, because old school gaming is become a thing, especially for people who haven't played it in years, or people are on the game train now, and like, oh, old school's great, so nostalgia sells. I mean, look at all the stuff at toy stores or Targets and Walmarts with all these mini arcade games. That's a huge thing. Everything's like the teens of not teen people, but the teens, the 2010 to 2000, has been a decade of retro, I think.
There's a fair amount of that. I mean, maybe much like the Peter Thiels of the world, we're not looking towards a great future, but the past looks great. So we should embrace the things that we loved once upon a time. That certainly could be part of it. But as far as apocalyptic, I haven't got too much apocalyptic immediate off topics. I'm trying to think of something that I mean, the closest thing I have to anything apocalyptic was this. I went to the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival and met up with the guys from the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, who I highly recommend if you're looking for any number of Lovecraftian tchotchkes. But the classic pre-apocalyptic campaign from that, from Call of Cthulhu and Chaosium, was Masks of Nyarlathotep. And apparently the HPLHS went back and created this giant box filled with props for the game. So there's the box. This is how thick it is. That
is a large box.
This is $99 worth of stuff in here. And I've unpacked some of it, which is all these files. And they organize it very nicely. So because the campaign is America, England, Egypt, Kenya, they added a chapter called Peru. There's the Australia chapter, and then the final China chapter. And as far as some of their more audacious props, there is a police file that actually shows up sealed, so that you give it to the players and they actually get to break the seal on it to open it, which I was kind of impressed by.
That's cool.
They actually, there's one of the classic things about that campaign, as you attempt to stop the destruction of the world, stop the supernatural apocalypse, was there's a big pile of clues you get at the beginning of the game. One of them was a matchbox. And there were actually, when the game first came out in book form, you could tear a page out and you could have this little matchbox that you could fold and glue to an actual matchbox, this sort of paper cover. Yeah. These guys actually provide the matchbox for the Stumbling Tiger bar. And you got to know, it's full of matches.
Oh yeah, I've researched making matchboxes and stuff, and yeah, you could get them relatively inexpensive, especially if you're producing a lot of them.
One of my favorite things they produced for the game was there was a classic handout that the game came out in the 80s, and every edition came out. There was always one handout, one clue that wasn't printed out. Usually, it would look like newspaper articles, or there'd be like an actual printed, telegram you could cut out of the book or whatever. Or there, like I said, there'd be little columns of newspaper article that would have clues in it. You could cut out of the book. But these guys have actually printed it on newsprint. But the thing that was always hilarious to me was one clue always said, photograph of yacht in Shanghai. And then there was no picture. I mean, there wasn't a drawn illustration. For 30 years, that clue was just, this is a photo. Give it to the players. It says, this is a photo of a yacht in Shanghai. And son of a bitch, if they didn't use Photoshop to actually take this yacht and put it in a 1920s Shanghai harbor and actually do it, they finally created that clue for the game 30 years after the fact, which is kind of hilarious. But this thing actually has scrolls, which if you open it up have got, Chinese parchment in it. And my favorite thing, a wax cylinder. Now, this is the Edison gold molded records wax cylinder with the patent number on it and good old Edison's photograph. But when you open it up, instead of having a wax cylinder, there's a thumb drive with audio files on it so that all of the recorded clues can actually be played off of your laptop or.
So they couldn't step up and do a real wax cylinder. They cheaped out, man. They cheaped out.
What would you play it on?
There's actually there's a YouTube channel that I follow and I look at stuff called these guys from England, Techmoan, like Techmoan, like TECHMOAN, Techmoan, and he's like a total audio guy, and he's always talking about old vintage equipment and stuff. Like if you like electronics, audio recording, like he has some really cool stuff he talks about. Like he'll track stuff down and review it and take it apart and new stuff. And he did this one show about there was, I don't know if you can still get him anymore, but there was like companies that were making these like kind of IKEA style, like, and I say IKEA because it's, self-assembly, like from Japan, where you could put like your own like Victrola wax cylinder recording thing together. Yeah. And the one that he found was, like they gave you like plastic cups to record and stuff. But I think there's actually stuff out there like these put them together kind of things where, inexpensive, you put together, make your own little Victrola wax cylinder player because wax cylinders are out. So you could get them. I don't know what the cost is, but you could get them, and you could get wax cylinders. So If the HPA Lovecraft Historical Society is ever looking, you guys suck. You need to step up your game. Get some real wax cylinders in there.
Oh wow! I am not telling Andrew that.
No, he'll stab. Andrew will stab me.
Yeah.
While Sean holds me down.
Not when they sent they have a gree that they have included in one of their audio recordings for the audio shows that actually has a piece of snakeskin inside the gree. Now, it's not real snakeskin, but I will point out these crazy bastards went and found a place that produces fake snakeskin so they can put it inside the voodoo charm with the blood smeared on the back of it. That's pretty impressive.
No, they do a real good job. I kid because nobody's gonna, even if you could buy a replica wax cylinder player, nobody's gonna buy one. But it would be so cool if they did put on wax cylinder.
These are the crazy guys who, during a live action role playing game, which they used to make these kind of props for, took a bunch of people out to like the Los Angeles airport, put them in a helicopter, and flew them out over some section of public park outside of Los Angeles to start the game. I mean, it was $300 a ticket to be in the game, but it eventually involved a helicopter ride into the desert and a bunch of files like that, a bunch of case files like that, showing this strange sigil in the desert, and they literally flew the helicopter over a shape that they had made in the desert with their team that was like 20 yards across that people could see from the air and go, my God, there's some sort of occult ritual that happened down here. And these guys take their gaming very seriously, and their products reflect that. They do some wonderful props. Most of the guys from them work in Hollywood making either paper or other kinds of props for professionally for studios. So it shows. So that's off topic.
Masculine, like you said, it's kind of an apocalyptic scenario.
It is.
Speaking of books, more books. I came across, I found it a while ago, and I found a series of books called Waste World. It's 4 really thin books. They're like maybe 125 pages. There's 4 of them by an author named James Barton. Now, James Barton is a pseudonym for somebody that we know very well. Not me and you personally, but an author we know, James Lawrence. So before James Lawrence did Deathlands, because these came out in 83. Yeah, 83. Pre-Deathlands. So he was writing some apocalyptic books. Now, these were put out by, the company was... shit, I can't see. I think it's Granada. So it was only available in England and New Zealand. So I had a little trouble tracking these down, except online, because you weren't just going to find these in a used bookstore. So I picked them up. I've read 2 of them. I'm reading the third one. I didn't start it yet, but I read like 2 pages. So it was interesting because I wanted to see. I was like, well, what was James Lawrence? How was he writing before Deathlands? His post-apocalyptic stuff. It's one main character, and you could definitely see some of his style developing that goes into Deathlands in these books. But these books are, again, a series of books that are definitely a product of their time, or maybe a product of how somebody in England thinks about the United States.
Okay.
But it's kind of interesting. A lot of there's a lot of wahoo in it with mutants, because there's a global collapse and a war, and this guy was overseas and came back to America through South America, and America's collapsed, and there's this rain that makes this radioactive rain that comes down and it makes mutants, and
you mean like instant mutants, like You get rain on you and you just start growing arms and legs and shit. And...
not that bad, but yeah, there's a lot of mutants. It's I don't know. It's not his best. Again, but knowing where it came from, but in just a lot of the tone of it, you know, if we want to put it into a PC world, wouldn't fly. You know, nowadays wouldn't fly. You know, but again, it's a product of its time. It doesn't bother me because.
Well, you know, when you said it's made back in the 80s, somebody pointed out to me quite horrifically that in 2 years, the 90s are going to be 30 years ago. And I could have sworn to God I remember that 30 years ago was the 70s, but it's not. So, you know, the 80s is a whole person's lifetime ago, for crying out loud, you know?
Yeah. When I was in high school, when you and I were in high school, these books came out.
Yeah, that's almost, you can cram 2 extra generations in there between now and then. Yeah. You know, that is a lot of time and a lot of change.
Yeah, but it was interesting to find. I mean, I didn't pay outrageous prices, but they were more than I would like to pay because it's one of those like, well, I got to get it. I got to be the weird, obscure post-apocalyptic guy, so I got to get these books. You know. Mm-hmm. And then also I tracked down another series of books when I discovered we announced earlier in the year in February or March that Victor Milan passed away, and Victor Milan was an author. And some of the books that he did were the Guardian series under the pseudonym Richard Austin.
That's the only one I ever remember.
But he also did a second series under the pseudonym Robert Barron called Storm Rider. Storm Rider. Let's see. He was born free on the desolate frontier of a post-nuclear land. But a lethal force of armored troops murdered his free-spirited parents, imprisoned him in a city school, tried to shatter his hard-won vision of freedom. They failed. Storm Rider, you know. So,
so it sounds like what, Billy Jack goes post-apocalyptic or something.
I think so.
Excellent. I can only hope he kung fu's and motorcycles these dirty fascists left, right, and center. That's going to be great.
Big machines, bad country. For these road warriors, it's still the home of the brave.
That makes me so happy.
Again,
They're not holding. No, if you're going to be ridiculous, go all in. Do not hold anything back. That's, you know, that's the rule.
Like the old saying, if you're going to go over the top, you go all the way.
Yeah.
So I've only been able to get, there's only 3 of these books. I've only been able to get 2 of them because, again, they're hard to find in bookstores. When I do encounter them, I only find the first or second one. For some reason, the 3rd book is really hard to get. Now, I have seen some online, but eBay sellers thinks that King Midas came by and touched it. So
yeah, I
am not paying $28 to $35 for $1.09 for a how much did this cost? Oh, $4.50 paperback. Not going to happen. So I will keep on watching, and maybe 6 months to a year from now, I will find a copy. So that's what I've been doing lately. I've been hunting down these obscure, like, things I haven't read, you know, like that. And then I also came across, again, some website I came across. There's a series by Richard Harding, The Outrider. You know, there's 5 books in the series. Most of them I got dirt cheap. Some of them I paid a couple bucks for because they were hard to, I just couldn't get them. But, yeah. It's another one of those series of roaring through a world where every highway is a battlefield. The one true road warrior comes, the Outrider. Time, the not too distant future. Place, the United States of America. Cities lie in twisted ruins. The earth smolders and burns. Men live in sewers. In this violence-ravaged world, there is just one law left, the law of survival. Amid the chaos and the ashes, one man, one man refuses to bow down to the self-styled dictator. Thugs who rule the wreckage. One man lives by his own rules. One man rides alone. Bonner, the Outrider.
Yeah, he ain't got nothing on Hell Tanner. That's all I know. Although clearly, yeah, that really smells like Hell Tanner to me. You know, with a little Max Rockatansky mixed in just for good measure.
Yeah, so this is what I've been tracking down these kind of weirdo, less known post-apocalyptic, men's adventure series. Because again, I like to try to be the resource for weird, not as well known post-apocalyptic shit.
Excellent. That is most excellent, sir. I am super happy with every one of those splash, back cover descriptions. Those are fantastic. Absolutely. I can't remember if I had mentioned to you that I ran across a series of books called the Afterblight Chronicles.
It sounds familiar, but please expand.
Well, got them sitting on the bookshelf over there. Afterblight's looks like it comes out of England. It looks like some of it may have also been sort of maybe I've mentioned it on the show before, but it's the most obscure thing that I've run across recently because it was sort of post-apocalyptic, but some of them were sort of felt like they were geared towards young adults. Particularly the one that was set. There's one that was set in a British public school. One of those, like they call it a public school, but it's really a private school. I don't understand why the British do that. But it was sort of the disease comes along, wipes out whatever percentage of the population, and there's these kids left behind in the school, and somehow it goes very Lord of the Flies very quickly. But the first, some of them were pretty good, but it's weird. The whatever this series, whatever their origins. I'm gonna detach my computer here from the energy source and actually get up and walk over to the.
You've detached it from your hydrogen cells.
Hydrogen cells, yeah, and pull these out of the bookshelf. Operation Motherland here, for instance. These were made by something called Abaddon Books. Schools Out was the very first one that I ran across with our British schoolboy with his, I guess that's supposed to be an M1 carbine or something. The quality's all over the place. I mean, it's weird. The quality is just all over the place on these. Some of them were really interesting, like Schools Out, like Operation Motherland. There were some others that were just, modestly weird, like The Culled. But at some point, I got put off the series because they just did a couple of books that were clearly based off of, I don't know, sort of the Robin Hood myth set in a post-apocalyptic setting, and were just terrible. For the most part, they did a pretty good job with these, and then then suddenly there was this weird drop in the quality, where it's the kind of post-apocalyptic writing where the bad guys or any character whatsoever is defined by only one factor, and that's what weapon do they carry. I mean, you know what I'm talking about? It just completely went weird, and suddenly, it's like people only had their exterior costume they were wearing and what weapons they had, and that just got really, really weird.
So they were kind of one-dimensional.
Worse. and some of the books had this sort of subplot going on about how somewhere out there in a kind of were these somewhere out there in the world were these bunkers full of people who had survived the plague, sort of, who in a very Night of the Comet kind of way were sending out various forces. In the story turned out to be connected to these high-end bunkers that high military and civilian and corporate leaders are all down in, who have somehow not quite had what it takes to survive the plague, being naturally immune, but are staving off the end by doing exactly what they did in Night of the Comet, rounding people up, sucking their blood out, and doing blood transfusions to sort of have temporary immunity, temporary white cell immunity based on other people's immunity in a kind of vampire-like existence. And that was a cool little subplot that went on and that they, multiple books in the series hinted at. And then it just disappeared. It was just, it felt like they're moving towards some sort of final resolution where there are stories set in America, stories set in Australia, stories set in Canada or England, and they're all going to somehow come together and settle this overarching story plot, and it never happened. I can't really recommend them. I mean, if you want to be a completist and you want to go out there and read some very recent, like 2000s post-apocalypse, knock yourselves out. The stuff's out there.
Well, it's so hard to be a completist nowadays because in the last 10 to 15 years, so much has been put out, especially with the whole zombie craze.
Oh yeah, if you try and get every zombie apocalypse novel,
because it's not like in this day of self-publishing, it's impossible because every Tom, Dick, and Harry can write something and just self-publish it on as a Kindle book or this or that. So there's so much out there, and unfortunately,
even print on demand via certain Amazon fulfillment services.
Yeah. So it's impossible to be a completist, and the thing is, you know what? You kind of also don't want to be a completist at this day and age either, because so much of it out there is just the quality is not good. I'm not saying that the quality of a lot of these old ones was great either.
Well, it went past an editor, is what I'm saying. I mean,
that's true.
Even these Abaddon books went through an editing process because they were going to put it on paper, and that's a monumental expense, and print out ever many copies of it. When it's self-published, there's no editing,
and then I had somebody look at it, but having your buddies look at it isn't necessarily editing. You need to have an impartial eye on it, because listen, this doesn't make any sense, or that's really bad, you need to change that. You need somebody to critique it
ruthlessly,
as you well know from writing, that you need an edit. You need somebody to look at it. You have edited and been edited, so you understand the process.
I've cried I've cried when I've had to lose things that I loved, but it needed to go. And that's all there is to it. So yeah, it's impossible to be a completist these days, but that doesn't mean that I still don't pick up the occasional thing. I don't think that I ever brought up the After Blight Chronicles before, but who knows? Somebody who knows our podcast better than us, and there's a couple of you out there, can undoubtedly correct me and tell me that I've entered the stage of senility where I begin repeating myself.
Oh no, people have quoted, "Whoa!" When you said that, I'm like, I were probably like, dude, we recorded that like 4 years ago. I have no idea what I said.
Yeah, well, we weren't even sure what we said back then, much less 4 years later.
Much less what we recorded the last show. Did we do a show before?
Have we been off topic? Are we off topic enough? How are we doing?
I think we should. Again, the purpose, again, of this format is to, as we gather different bits of information, we just spend some time talking about this stuff. It's just, instead of having a one main topic, like let's talk about this book or this movie, it's like, hey, I've been reading this, or I've been looking at that, or hey, did you see this? Just kind of an info general talk, which I think's pretty good. Because instead of us, because a lot of times we'll spend 20, 30 minutes talking about that stuff in the beginning of a show. Not to saying that we're not going to, but if we try to be conscious about it, we might, save up stuff and then drop another off topic in and talk about all this kind of various little tidbits and stuff like that, because, I want to wrap us up because I don't want to take us too long, but we'll probably talk about it more next off topic show is because now that there's more information out about the upcoming Fallout 76 game. So
yeah, I'm seeing a lot more about that. And apparently the Fallout people had this big sort of beta rollout that they showed they actually invited a bunch of YouTube and other reviewers, people who have a certain amount of following online or through other other outlets, to go out to the Greenbrier Hotel. They rolled it out at the Greenbrier Hotel in West Virginia, which is where the old congressional bunker was that you can take tours of. And so that's where they had people play the game to test out this one, they got like 3 hours of game time. And apparently the Greenbrier is a location you can get to in Fallout 76.
Huh. Yeah, because my understanding of the game, it's online multiplayer, and a lot of people are bitching. Well, I guess we'll talk about it for a minute. People are bitching about it because, it doesn't have the single player story, but, I would rather them create a dedicated multiplayer game than try to cram a multiplayer into the single player story game. Because I noticed that other video games they play suffer that, like Battlefield. Like, here's our single player experience, and we have the multiplayer, which is good, but they focus most of their energy on the multiplayer, and then the single player story suffers. That game suffers. So I'd rather them keep on making the single player stories individually, and if they want to make a multiplayer game, make the multiplayer game. Spend all the time on the multiplayer game, but then go back to doing the single player game. That way they're not developing both at the same time, and then one suffers,
There may be some sort of single player solo, not online option for Fallout 76.
Huh.
One of the reviewers I was listening to was mentioning that, but then I had to jump up and do something else, and I didn't get to finish the rest of his review. But he began talking about that there's a solo option. So old, tired grognards like us that don't want to get our vault dweller teabagged by a bunch of 13-year-olds who are back shooting us at our spawn point and then, calling us a homo, which is my experience of every online multiplayer.
Oh, I get it. But I do multiplayer. Like, I used to do it a lot, and I wasn't the greatest by any means. Don't get me wrong. I got my ass handed to me a lot. But, I also dealt it out. When I was on, I was on. I would deal it out pretty damn good too. But I was usually, I'm in the lower section. I'm not like again a 13-year-old who could play it nonstop all the time. But the idea,
goddamn marriage.
I know, but the idea of like having because I think it's a multiplayer, and you have your little bases, and you're trying to unlock the keys to get the nukes to be able to nuke the neighbors, and it sounds interesting. I need to dig into it a little bit more. But the idea sounds interesting. So there you go. We talked about Fallout 76. So
right, maybe we'll know more by the next time this thing rolls around.
Yeah. So all right, again, folks, that'll be it. That's a lot of we shared a lot of different miscellaneous stuff, and we'll do it again. And like I said, as we gather stuff, we'll throw one in and have just a show about different bits of information at one time. There you go.
Any thoughts for next time?
Well, I don't want to do another movie because we've done a bunch. Last couple we've done movies. Oh, by the way, I watched Mandy.
Oh well, I have not gotten there yet, but I understand that it's metal as fuck.
Yeah, but it wasn't as good as everybody was making it out to be.
In fact, it's heavy metal as fuck on the grounds that there's certain sequences in it that I understand were just absolutely lifted from the movie Heavy Metal. That were homages to heavy metal. The animation sequences.
Yeah, they had a bunch of animation sequences, which kind of took me out of the movie a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't kind of flow. But like I said, the two things that were really cool about it, well, there's three. The weapon that he made, which was inspired by the F from the logo of Celtic Frost, the black metal band from the 80s. The Cheddar Goblin.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a chainsaw fight, so that was pretty cool too. But it didn't meet up to the hype. Everybody's like, oh, I'm like, I didn't hate it, but it's like
we should definitely take a moment to, if we don't review movies, at least point out all the post-apocalypse movies that are currently available on Netflix or some of these services.
Yeah.
So that because there's a shit ton. I've actually been finding, when I started digging down, I ran across quite a few little post-apocalyptic films, and not so little, that are available right now for your entertainment.
Yeah, there's quite a bit out there, but I don't know. Next time, I don't know. I'm still thinking about. I want to go back to Gamma World. I think I want to. Maybe we'll. I don't know if I want to just do a whole.
Yes, you mentioned just digging down into one old time scenario, one old
one of the modules. I'm thinking maybe instead of just digging into the rule set, let's talk about the modules. Like maybe Legion of Gold, which was a sandbox type of module, which was the only one which was really a sandbox. Everything else is either, a lot of them were
dungeon crawls.
Coming of age ones, which was kind of like a start, with Famine and Fargo, the Cleansing Wars of Giddick, Black Hand, or the Mind Masters. Those are all kind of like, here you're just starting out, so no more sandboxes. So it's interesting. So we'll probably dig down to one of those Gamma World modules. We'll make a decision, then we'll kind of refresh our memories on it, and then we'll dig into it.
I'm all in favor of that plan. Okay, that's it for us, right?
That's it, folks. All right, so there we are. We are off topic as much as we are always off topic anyway. So there you go. All right, well, we hope you folks enjoyed this first episode of Off Topic. We hope it met all your expectations, and if it didn't, then, well, you got to lower your expectations. Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah. And if it didn't meet our expectations, then to hell with you, as Conan said.
Well, the hell with you. So, yeah. All right, folks. So that's it. We will see you next time, and we'll as usual. If you watch it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. I could care less about people subscribing to the YouTube channel. I just really use it to get the audio so we can post it on the blog. But if you want to follow us on YouTube, by all means, please do subscribe. There's a subscribe button somewhere. Follow the blog, podcast@groundzero.com. That's where everything gets posted. And there's on the right, there is a sign up for our email. Anytime the post is made, you'll get an email that there's a post and you can go check it out. So follow us there. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on all the social media. The more the merrier. We always appreciate it. So that's it, folks. And as usual, thanks for being with us, and we will see you in the wastelands.